And midseason awards, it's the best way to kind of recap what has happened up to this point in the season with Oklahoma football. Do you want to start with offense, defense?
Let's start with offense. Let's do
Offense. Okay. Offensive MVP. This is an interesting conversation because clearly the Texas game showed us Dillon Gabriel is rather valuable for this football team and for this offense. So it's really hard to argue that he's not the most important player on the offense after what we saw against Texas. Now, when you look at the stats, completing 65% of his passes, 13 touchdowns, 1 interception. Yes, he's had some inaccurate throws. He's had some head scratchers, but hasn't made a ton of mistakes with the football. But is that just the easy answer? Do we just go Dillon Gabriel as offensive MVP? Or is it a more complicated discussion?
it. It is not more complicated.
Really?
Well, you know the guys on the offense that I love, and I love those guys. But let's be honest. If Dillon Gabriel is not out there, nobody's doing anything. That is established fact. Okay. So I would say 49-0 beat down by Texas, backed up by 700 yards of offense against the top 25 team the next week. I think sometimes, Gabe, the easy answer is the right answer.
Just take the layup.
just take the layup.
So maybe this is the better way to put it. So he's the most valuable, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's the most crucial, the most important, whatever word you want to use. So maybe this is a better discussion. We'll give Dillon Gabriel offensive MVP, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who's been the most consistent player offensively? I think that's a different discussion. And it's hard not to give that to Braden Willis.
100%.
I think you've got to, you got to talk about Marvin Mims, right? 32 catches, 542 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's also, there's been a lot of times he's been open. The ball just hasn't found him. Eric Gray, I think, is a guy that's been really consistent. He's getting better, right? You look at the stat line, 695 rushing yards, averaging 7.2 a carry, which is
incredible,
which is awesome. 5 touchdowns. He's got 14 catches for 105 yards. And it feels like, he's finding his groove, but Braden Willis is the only answer for most consistent, right?
There's no question about it. And here's the way I would make the argument. And some of this is like for Marvin Mims, his position, it's just kind of how it is. But, he's reliant on Dillon Gabriel, right? What do you have? 1 catch for -2 against Texas. The game against TCU was not a great game for him. Eric Gray has been fantastic. He's averaging 7.2 yards per carry. But if you go and look at those statistics, his 2 worst games were TCU and Texas whenever Dillon Gabriel's not in there. Whenever you don't have a vertical passing attack, the running game is going to suffer some. But Braden Willis, the blocking, the effort, the focus, what he brings off of the field. I don't think I've complained about Braden Willis about anything that he's done. And I'm not trying to say that he's been a perfect player this season. That's not the case. There's blocks that, maybe he missed, or maybe he got beat, or, there's all kinds of those things. And that's just football. But there's one guy, in my opinion, on the entire football team that is the exact same player, no matter who the opponent is, no matter what the score is, no matter if your quarterback's playing or not, and that is Braden Willis.
I completely agree. I don't know how many more good things we can say about him. And you look at like the stats, like 20 catches. Before the season, we talked about him possibly eclipsing his career numbers in this one season. Like, he's kind of on his way. I mean, look, 312 yards, 5 touchdowns.
And getting stronger. And
I
what do
think
we
gaining
say?
confidence.
Yeah, the football gods pay it off, right? When you block your ass off, whenever you play like your hair's on fire every single time you're on the field, it's going to come back to you. It may not be as soon as you want it to, but it's going to come back, and it has. And like the 2 of the catches he had Saturday against Kansas are just incredible plays. The one on the goal line, he stole an interception from that guy. The other one over the middle, I don't think that ball typically does not go there, and it came to him in tight coverage on a line, and somehow he pulled that ball in. He's feeling it right now, and that's, whenever confidence doesn't just come out of thin air. It comes out of being prepared, practicing your ass off all week, and then in the game, knowing that you're going to be able to do it because you understand where and what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and I think, maybe the most complimentary thing I can say about him, and we've talked a little bit about this before, but I do think he's setting kind of the foundation of what the standard is moving forward for OU
Totally
football.
agree. That's right.
Like, when you turn on the tape, when the coaches turn on the tape, they're going to point at number 9 and they're say, this is how you play when you play here. This is it. This is what it looks like. And that's about the biggest compliment you can get as a football player. And kind of along those same lines, it wasn't a coincidence that the game plan against Texas was, hey, let's just put the ball in Braden's hands.
Yep.
I mean, that shows how much Jeff Lebby and that coaching staff trust him. I mean, and that's just, I mean, they put him at quarterback, Ted.
There you go. That's it.
But so it is decided. Dillon Gabriel, most valuable, most important. Braden Willis has been most consistent performer. Yep. I can live with that. Okay, this is where things get interesting. And ever since I put this rundown together, I've been smiling, just waiting to talk to you about this. The defensive MVP up to this point in the season. Now, let me lay some things out. Maybe this will help you, Ted.
Okay.
Stutzman and Ugwebu tied for the team lead in tackles at 62. Right? That's good information to know. Stutzman leads the team in tackles for loss. He's got 8. Downs and Grimes have 6. Grimes leads the team with 4 sacks. Those all came very early in the season, though. Billy Bowman was really, really good before he got injured against TCU. Deshaun White, he's the 4th leading tackler on the team. He's been pretty consistent at that cheetah position. I'm trying to help you out, man, because this is kind of all you. Who's been the defensive MVP up to this point in the season? I'm not going to say you have to pick someone. I'm going to let you do what you want here.
This is, and I think it's telling, frankly, but I think it's Billy Bowman. As crazy as that is to say. And I don't want to, I'm not like, this is, we're at the halfway point. I think there's some good positive things that I've seen here, in the Kansas game and then going into the bye week that I feel like, I'm not trying to say we're going to be a good defensive team the second half. I'm not saying we're going to be a top 25 unit, not saying we're going to be necessarily even in the top half of the Big 12. Okay. But I've seen some positive things here recently. But the first half was bad. And I can look at almost every single guy on this list and think of individual, like, game-changing, massive, impactful mistakes that have helped lead to losses. So it's hard for me to award an MVP under those circumstances, right? So considering that, I'd rather not get into those, and I'd rather just say Bowman, because until he went down, up until that point, he was the most consistent player that we had. Wasn't
I
perfect, but he was the most consistent.
I agree. And the defense wasn't stellar against Kansas State, but it was like the wheels fell off for whatever reason in that TCU game.
Mm-hmm.
And really, they haven't been able to put those wheels back on.
No.
Since Bowman went out. And is it all because he went out and they had to move some things around in the back end? No, it's not all because they lost Billy Bowman, but the way that he was playing in the back end of the defense and the way that he was playing that safety position, he was the impact player in the back end of that defense, and not having him has been an issue. But the defense as a whole, it just,
safety is an often overlooked position, but incredibly important. Look to last year. Last year we were playing solid defense, and then Turner Yale goes down and things fell apart on us, right? And you can say kind of the same thing about Bowman. You know, you go back to the Kansas State game, and that game is really like 5 plays that fell apart. You played a really long stretch of football in the middle of that game defensively that was excellent. And then just a handful of plays end up costing us. So the hope is you get him back and start playing good defense. But even if you don't, let's just assume that you don't have him back for a while. I think they're starting to get some experience and some guys playing better on the back end. But it's disappointing that there hasn't been someone step up consistently and play. I'm not even asking for like pick sixes and sack fumbles, and I'm just talking about strong, consistent winning football. Everyone's just been kind of taking their turns on having the mistakes that cost you.
so if I had to make you pick someone else other than Billy Bowman, who would you pick? Deshaun White?
Yeah. And I don't feel, and I love Deshaun White, and I think he's done some really good things. I thought he had a really good game against Kansas, had the interception, which was fantastic. Had several plays there where he was an effective blitzer. I think he's been solid almost the entire year. But, you take the Kansas State game, and he had a mental mistake that you point to at the end, and it's like, if this doesn't happen, we have a chance to win that football game. So I hate to bring those things up, and I don't want to harp on the bad, but I hope that we have several guys that have an MVP second half. And whenever we're talking about the end of year conversation, that it's like, these are the guys, these are the main guys, and let's talk about all the reasons why they deserve it. And I still feel like there's a chance that could happen.
Let's pick the mood up a little bit, shall we? Let's go.
But do you agree? I mean, what do you think though, real quick?
I thought you were gonna say there is no MVP. So that's where I was at mentally going into this. So I figured
thought
it was
about it a long time and I could not settle on anything. I just couldn't.
I think Bowman's the answer, which is crazy because he's missed the last essentially games. 3 games.
Yeah.
So that's probably the best representation.
Makes the heart grow fonder, I believe, is what they say, right?
Maybe that's it. But I think that you saying Billy Bowman's the defensive MVP up to this point, when he hasn't played in the last 3 football games, is kind of a perfect representation of how it's gone defensively.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fair, right? All right. Let's get in a better mood. Favorite offensive play up to this point in the season. They're actually, and I went through like every single game to find the best ones, and there's some really good nominees. Okay, I've got like 6 nominees for this. Gavin Freeman's touchdown on his first touch against UTEP, right, with the spin.
Awesome. Yep.
That was sweet. We've got the Marcus Major, oh my God, he embarrassed that guy so badly, run against Kent State. I mean, that was absolutely filthy. You had the Dylan Gabriel 61-yard touchdown run on the QB draw to tie the game at 7 against Nebraska. The double pass against Nebraska, Braden Willis to Marcus Major, to just kind of really put the nail in the coffin for the Cornhuskers. In that was to put OU up 28-7 in that game. The Drake Stoops touchdown versus Kent State. Right, the shoe comes off, slow-mo, dive.
That was awesome.
Just an incredible shot there. And this is a play I'd kind of forgotten about. Marvin Mims's 50-yard touchdown to tie the game up at 14 against Kansas State. And the reason we've kind of mentally blocked it out of our head, because what happened right after that, Ted?
Was that the long kick return?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
But that was a great play. He catches it.
That was the one in the northwest corner, right?
Yeah, it's going southwest.
Southwest?
No,
okay.
Southeast, right? Or actually,
Southeast
I don't remember.
Corner. What was the one
what
in the
way was he going in that? It's the one where, remember, he started punching the pad, and on the radio broadcast, I was like, please don't do that. Like, your hands are very valuable. Please stop.
I don't know. For whatever reason, I was thinking it was the one in the, like on our sideline going away from the massive Jumbotron, like back there in that corner. But
for some reason, I thought it was the exact opposite of what you're thinking. But
you're probably right. You are probably right.
It's probably neither, honestly.
I'm really trying to remember what way the kickoff went, which I think the kickoff it came out of the south end zone and came to our sideline, didn't it? I think that's
pretty
right.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I am, now that we just made everyone dumber with that conversation, so that was a big play in that football game. We don't really remember it that way, but the punching the wall after, that's a great celebration by Mims as well. And then I was thinking about which one of Eric Gray's touchdowns to put on there, but they're kind of all the same. He breaks through, he turns the guy in a circle, they look like an idiot, he scores a touchdown, So
it was maybe the back-to-back touchdowns against Kansas, right?
That was pretty good. Just like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll just do it again. That was pretty good. So unless you got another nominee, something I didn't think of.
I do. Maybe it's bias creeping in, but Braden Willis's pirouette on the sideline against Kansas.
That was awesome.
That was an awesome play. And I just love whenever he gets paid off on touchdowns. So that's probably part of it. But I think, to me, the biggest one, it may not be, and it was spectacular, but Dylan Gabriel's run at Nebraska, because like, if he doesn't get that, was that third down?
Yeah.
It was third down. That place was electric at Nebraska. They went down and scored. Like it felt like a bad situation if we didn't convert something on that drive and make something happen. And that run was electric. And who knows what happens in that game if he doesn't pull it off.
Yeah. And the way that the rest of the season has gone, it kind of makes you forget how much fun that game was, especially for the people that were there.
Yep.
Like it was a really cool atmosphere. Nebraska started off so well. Like the start of that game couldn't have been worse for Oklahoma. And that was the play that kind of settled everything down. And then OU just whooped their ass the rest of the way. And it was a lot of fun. And that trip home was a lot of fun. But man, that seems like a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. Brutal.
So that's what we're going
living
with?
On top of the world at that point. Yeah, that's what I would go with. Yeah.
I think that now I think the best visual of the entire season is the Drake Stoops dive TD with one shoe on. I think like just if you're just looking at the video or of the picture, like that's the best one of the year. But I don't know, the Braden Willis double pass to Marcus Major, because that felt like, okay, this game is over.
Yeah.
And I would say that moment was like the high point of the season for me so far, where you were like, oh, okay, we're beating their ass. We're good.
This
Let's
is going to
go.
be fun. Yeah.
Like this is going to be a fun season. I haven't felt like that anymore. So
right.
I think I would, you can have the DG run in that game. I'll take the double pass, because that double pass, it was like, okay, this game's over. I feel like that was the point in the year where OU fans, we were riding our highest at that point.
Yep. No, I agree with that. I think that's I think it's always fun to take those special plays and reminisce of what you were feeling like whenever it happened. And yeah, I'll take both of those. And hey, if my guy Braden Willis is involved, I'm down for that too.
Yeah. And the Freeman touchdown was sweet. I mean,
it
that was a really cool
incredible.
Play. Let's bring the mood down a little bit, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
Last category, midseason awards. Favorite defensive play of the year up to this point. I really had a tough time finding anything other than the CJ Colton interception versus Kansas.
I know.
And when we put this out on Twitter, it was pretty much unanimous that was the only answer from people. Do you have anything?
Nothing else. I've got nothing else. And I mean, there's some really nice plays in there, and guys have done some good things, but like, to me, that's it. It's an incredible play. I don't know how he was able to pull it off. I don't know how he was even able to tip the pass. But whenever it happened, I'll tell you, the Nebraska game, you felt good. Like whenever that happened in the Kansas game, I felt like it wasn't just that play, but it felt like, okay, we can resurrect the season here, So that's the play I would go with.
The only other thing I could think of was Reggie Grimes' sacks versus UTEP, which feels like forever ago. But remember his grandma with the cancer treatment in attendance, like that, the storyline there was fantastic. Like watching him celebrate with the type of emotion that he did. That was a really, really cool moment, I thought. But other than that, I really couldn't think of anything, man.
There hadn't been a lot, and that's the nature of it. That's where we're at. And it's just the nature of defense doesn't lend itself to a bunch of plays that just remind you of like how great it's been. A lot of times, some of the best plays are a guy beating a tackle, forcing the quarterback out of the pocket, throw it away on third down, and we win the football game. So there's only been a handful. Like, we've had opportunities and couldn't pull them off. Deshaun White had an opportunity for a pick six against TCU, couldn't pull that off. I mean, Key Lawrence had an opportunity for maybe two big interceptions against Kansas. We didn't pull any of those off. So it's been tough and it's been frustrating, but the CJ Colton interception was, I mean, it's super impressive.
Yeah. I guess the only other thing that, really brought a smile to my face defensively so far this year is like Isaiah Coe's had a couple where he just absolutely dominates an interior lineman, removes him, and then has a TFL. He's had a couple of them, and I'm like, yeah. But I mean, that's really not. I mean, I was hoping to talk about pick sixes because we mapped the podcast out. Like, despite what some people may think, we're actually pretty structured with this thing. Like, we knew we were going to do this at the mid-season point and during the bye week. And I was really hoping to have some pick sixes to talk about, like some huge hits to talk about. Like, no, I mean, it just didn't work out that way so far.
Nope. It's been frustrating, but they're coming. The back half, they're coming. We're going to stay positive.
Love that attitude.